to just give you a reminder that the writer experience part is supposed to be a quick check-in, especially now that we've got so many people at the table. We need to move through that fairly quickly. So if there's something you want to bring up that you think needs more of a Q&A with staff or is going to turn into a longer discussion, now is the time to ask that that be added to the agenda as its own item rather than trying to shove it into writer experience. So, would anyone like to make any changes to the agenda?
I have 3 questions of staff that I think they're a single item. I think it can be yes, no, or a date. I think it's very quick. And I think it'll fit in my writer experience.
I move we approve the agenda.
All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes of May 21st. Someone like to move to approve those?
Second.
Second. Okay, any discussion?
Sorry, who was the second? Ari?
Any discussion? Going twice? All in favor of approving the minutes of May 21st? Okay. Georgia, would you like to read out the public comment standards?
Welcome to Asheville Transit Committee. We meet on the 3rd Tuesday of the month in City Hall from 3:30 to 5:30. The Transit Committee is a volunteer citizen board designed to offer input and guidance to Asheville Transit System and City Council. We do not set or change routes, control Asheville Transit's budget, or have authority over staff, drivers, or management company. We are a group of citizens like you who are here to ensure community concerns are taken into consideration when setting public transit policy. We welcome public input in our meeting. We are allowed to comment on any matter under consideration prior to a final vote. If you have something to say, raise your hand and chair will recognize you. There are also 2 public comment periods, one at the starting of the meeting and one at the end. Any person addressing the committee is limited 3 minutes. However, a group may have a single spokesperson who will be allowed 10 minutes. The committee will receive written information from any individuals or groups that cannot conclude their presentation within this time limitation. If you would like to have an item discussed in more detail as part of our
on June the 21st at approximately 6:52 p.m. The E2 did not stop for me at stop number 525 at Dillingham and Old Hawk Creek Road. I was at the stop with my wife in clear sight of the driver going by. This is another example of Asheville's poor transit service with no care and compassion for its citizens needing public transportation. I left a voicemail at the ART phone number and do not expect any response from them. Thus, I am writing to you and am asking that you read my complaint during the public input time during the Transit Committee meeting. I would go there in person, but I cannot depend on ART service to get me there. Regretfully, Steve O'Bremstein.
Thank you.
Jeff, is there any way to get a copy of that so I can just attach it over this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I can hand you this, or I can forward it to you.
Either way.
You might have the Steve's former member of the committee and both of them.
Jeff, would you mind repeating the time that you said?
Yes.
June 21st.
6:52 p.m. at stop number 525,
Thank you.
the E2.
Me too. Thank you. We can review. We can review it.
Any other public comment? Going once, going twice. Okay. Rider experience. Since this is your first time, Paul, I guess I will start on this side of the room so that you hear other goals first. I have to apologize for not having been here the last couple of meetings. I've pretty much barely left my bedroom the last 2 months, which means I haven't been riding the bus a lot. However, when I have gotten out in the last couple of weeks, I've been unhappy to hear from drivers, both that the company is still enforcing the no grocery bags other than what you can put on your lap, which means people can't go grocery shopping, and that, you know, the driver I was listening to at that point was about to start their first wave of Coterra buses and didn't feel they received barely any training at all on it, and was expecting to have to take care of teaching themselves on their own time what was necessary to safely operate those buses. So that's not good.
This is Molly, and overall, my experiences have been pretty favorable. I have noticed continued discrepancies between the app and the app, actually the new boards that were installed in the transit station and whatnot, but I'm directly emailing Jessica and Marcelo whenever I notice it, and we'll start to take photos and screenshots just to make sure that y'all have good timestamps and everything we need to pass by. But that's my one big thing.
Harvey. I had some problems earlier, about two or 3 weeks ago, and about sleeping in transit and a dispatcher and LaShawn, she was supposed to be take care of that. She called me and said she would be taking care of that. The other thing I had at the station was, saw him again today as the overweight security guy we got there, you know. He's quite a bit overweight. If he had to run out somebody or whatever, he couldn't grab. He is quite a long fellow. Other than that, I had a tour of transit headquarters. There was good camaraderie there. I had a tour of the office, the maintenance, the drivers. They were excellent. Wash bays and everything else like that. Like I said, it was just a great visit, and it was a learning visit. And I appreciate, I was with Barry, and he gave me a tour guide, and I had fun, and I learned a lot. There was, I'd like to commend the drivers on ES1, Ernest and Charlene, and then Lene, Ernest, they have a courtesy about when they go up in that medical park. They necessarily know where these older people have to get off at, and it's not at the bus stops, and it's very convenient of them to let them out where they need to be let out, and they just like on them automatic, giant on the spot now, Ernest and Charlene. And then before I came in here today, about 2:30, I was on the E1, and But, you know, the driver was giving, the driver Cadillac, he was giving our driver a heck of a time. He wasn't having none whatsoever. We were there like 10, 15 minutes, slowing him down, you know, in his tracks. But like I said, with half of the people and the bus driver, they pushed it out of the way, and that was a good thing. But I got the driver's license tag number if you want it, and that's it right.
So, I've noticed 3 new bus stop signs. I think they were replacement signs where the bus stop signs were actually missing. So it seems like that's being addressed, and I appreciate that. I applaud RATP Dev. I sent a lengthy email about some trash that I found consistently over a period of weeks and months on buses. My sense is that that was addressed, and I'm appreciative of that. I would like to see it more systematic than relying on me reporting, and I would be willing to help create the process to make that happen. As I came in today, I was on bus 1020, and there was a transit committee vacancy notice posted, and contact Elias Mathis, who left in October. So there was a sign on bus 20. It's on the big black section directly behind the driver. So it's not up at top, but it's directly behind the driver. Okay. The questions that I have is the bus platform at the transit center power washed? And could it be weekly?
It is not yet,
Okay.
but it is my plan that we try to do that on a weekly basis.
All right.
It's the infrastructure part of that, and how we go about it, if, that's where it is.
Very good. And the windowsills on the transit center doors, it's about a 1/4 inch thick of grime on the windowsills of the doors. So if that could be added to that list, I would appreciate it. And also wet wipe the tops of the trash cans. They're always dirty and dusty when I look at them. If they could be wiped down daily, I think it would give just a sense of care at the transit center. That's all I have.
I've been out of town in and out, so I haven't been riding the bus a lot lately. But I also went to the transit maintenance center.
Me too.
Kim invited me, so that's the first time I had ever been. I guess 2 observations I would have about that would be, in terms of the later feasibility study, we talked about how about 80% of the land was used, but 20% was not, is also kind of 2-dimensional. It's not really a lot of use of 3-dimensional space in terms of like going up. So I think of land usage, there was a lot of ways to reuse that land, so I hope the feasibility study kind of looks at that. Secondly, it looked like nobody had decorated, you know, since like 1974, I would say. Everything was really outdated. The furniture looked like a bad episode of, you know, like Starsky and Hutch type furniture. So I think that kind of reflects a little bit about what we think about that transit
shorthand, right? They can still bring those on, I'm assuming.
Okay.
And,
I guess my understanding is we let machetes and blades on, so
oh,
there's no restrictions on that.
Okay.
We should discuss.
yeah,
Fact is, open carry guns are allowed, correct? So there's a lot of things that should be nailed down to what really should be allowed.
Our lovely attorney Eric Atherton is hiding behind that post, helping us ensure that our weapons
Yeah.
policy is.
So those are things we've been
lawful.
talking about that we need to work on, and they need to be fairly straightforward. If you go to the North Carolina laws, it's wide open.
right. I think we actually have that on a t-shirt, is that right?
It is on there, yeah.
Cool. Okay, and one last thing, and I don't want this to turn into a large discussion, it's just kind of a question for me, is that, so woman gets off the transfer, I don't know what bus she was coming from, but I had seen the bus pull in, and our driver for the W1, he gets to the light, or I'm sorry, the S1, he gets to the light, the red light, and it stopped for a full at least 2 minutes. And a woman's standing there just like trying to get on. I understand if you had just left the station, but in that kind of period, I feel like it's a little excessive to prove a point that, you know, oh, you missed your bus, but if you're stopped for a solid 2 minutes, and he wouldn't even look at her. And I'm just like, you know, some kind of explanation would be cool to her. I mean, she knows it's probably inconvenient, but I just feel like that felt a little rude. And I've seen that happen a couple times. So I don't know exactly what kind of policy would be for that, but yeah, if they're just standing there waving at you, trying to get your attention, and you're not even gonna look at them, even though you know they're just trying to get on the bus and you're stopped at the red light, I think that's a little harsh.
Is it? What is the policy of that? What they're pulling out from the school? They don't stop.
Like that I can understand if there's not a red light right there. But when there's a red light, as soon as you get there and you're there for a solid 2 to 3 minutes, I mean, they're gonna know the rule. If you're having to go, you're having to go.
So you're saying that just so I understand, you're saying that the traffic light right there.
Right, like as soon as they pull out, you have that traffic light right there.
Right.
Like they're just sitting there for 2 minutes, won't even acknowledge her, nothing. And she's yelling. I mean, she's waving and everything. Has her bus pass in her hand. You know, it's just like I don't know.
You don't know, that other one that you're talking about is leaking, and this one is specific.
Mhm.
Do you have bus numbers?
Uh,
Bus numbers would help us, and dates.
okay. The date for the leaking one was yesterday actually.
Okay.
I don't know the number for it. I'll have to look again.
It's
It's the one from the back
W1.
corner of the bus, right?
It
There's
was-
a W1 for the leaking one.
And we look, I can find it from that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you can get bus numbers, that helps.
Okay.
Just-
I'll make sure to write that down actually.
And then, it is a rule that you're not supposed to once you let this slip.
Mm-hmm.
The issue is, if you bend it a little there, then when
They're
I'm
gonna want
sitting
it
at the
to go
light
faster.
up the street at wherever it is, and someone wants to board the bus just outside the crosswalk, do we open the door?
Right.
So those are the kind of things we should discuss and be really clear on how we're gonna do it. Can you acknowledge the person? Yes, then that should be done. So, you don't know where that was and when that was.
It would have been either Saturday or Sunday. I can't remember which day it was. I don't remember to work.
Alright.
And that was the S1?
That was W1.
W1,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, I've been out of town a lot also, although I didn't use transit while I was still in Detroit. I rode a new streetcar and went down to the people mover system and went to Henry Ford Museum where I saw the actual bus that Rosa Parks rode on in Montgomery, Alabama.
especially where there are bus routes. It'd be nice if the streets that they use were better. State Street in general is just awful. I've been throwing around a few times, but not on the floor. But I did see a couple of them just flood to the floor. That's the one way, you know, there are a lot of others, but I'm just listening to
Just being, I'm pretty sure there is a repaving project in the works for
Yeah.
State Street.
so.
Yeah, it'll happen in the next few months. And then the other thing we have on the agenda a little later is, we talked about, a program called Smart Drive that's gonna help, also with that.
Yeah, it helps with driving behavior. And so when you have people bouncing around, you know, there's another side of that, is how's the driver handling that situation and looking at what's happening and what can we do to improve that situation as a driver. And so that is something that may help with that as well. Well, I know it will help with that. But it also, you know, schedules are, I've always said, schedule be dangerous. We need to do it safely. So that's how it needs to be done. And then we need to work on making sure our schedules are where they need to be so we can do it safely. And that's how it should be done. That takes a lot of effort on everybody's part to get there. There are issues with schedule, and we gotta go there with that. So that's our commitment, is to try and help with that in any way that we can. And you're welcome to come down to the facility anytime. Okay? Sure. That's welcome.
Thank you. Sarah, would you like to take the stage?
Absolutely.
Oh, thank you, Elias. And anyone in the back who has trouble seeing the screen, feel free to come up and move to wherever you need to be so that you can see properly.
All right, so I'm Sarah Schilliger. I'm the deputy city clerk in the clerk's office, and we're very closely with boards and commissions. So I was asked here to come today just to give a very brief orientation. I know we got some new members, and hopefully this is a refresher for some of you, but feel free to ask questions along the way. Okay, so starting off, the transit committee. It was originally created as an advisory committee to city council, and then in 2013, there was some restructuring, I guess you could say, creating the multimodal transportation commission, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with, and making transit a subcommittee to that commission. This means that city council appoints the multimodal transportation members to advise on various transportation matters directly to city council, whereas y'all have been appointed by the multimodal transportation committee to make recommendations very specific to transit matters. Here are just some various authorities or resources I would encourage you to take a look at. The committee does have adopted rules or procedures. These are very specific to the committee's needs to resolve any what may be Lacey, I know it's her first day, which is exciting, and Jessica. They have been designated by the city manager and the transportation director, and they are your main resource for city policies or procedures, help the committee stay within your scope, and may provide that technical assistance as needed. It's very important to note that staff does not work for or at the direction of the committee, but as you know, they are an excellent resource for processes and procedures within the city. There's also administrative staff support, Marcella and Deanna. They work more on the administrative side as far as making sure that all materials are posted online so that the public can see in advance. This includes minutes, support materials, and the agenda. They also keep attendance, help with the meeting setup and coordination, and also work closely with me and the clerk's office to ensure that all your meetings are properly noticed and on the website. You also have a board chair. This is a leadership position, as you know. The main role is to preside over all meetings and to ensure that the work of the committee is being accomplished, to maintain control and order of the meeting. This may mean eliminating any unproductive or unruly conversation, develop and approve the agenda prior to being sent, and then approve reports before being sent to the Multimodal Transportation Commission. And also work closely with staff to help orient and welcome our new members. And I think we touched base on a handbook that is also available. It's just more details of what the role really entails. Various guidelines to follow. This is for all boards and commissions. We talked about state statute, the open meetings law. Very briefly, this means that all meetings must be properly noticed. Again, I work closely with staff to provide that notice. Opportunity for the public to attend, so in a public space where anyone is accessible. And then also have official meeting minutes. So those are the three main things covered in the open meetings law. Also, electronic meetings are prohibited. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but that's because they are not accessible, as we talked about in the open meetings law. Attendance is also required. This was adopted in that policy I mentioned, adopted by City Council. You are required to attend at least 75% of the meetings, unless there's unexcused absences, of course. A quorum is also required to hold a public meeting. This is a majority of your members, excluding any vacancies that you might have at the time. And then just want to note inclement weather. If Asheville City Schools are canceled, then it is city policy that all boards and commissions committee meetings are canceled for that day. If they should hold a 2-hour delay in the morning, it's at the chair's discretion. And then we just ask that staff lets me know as soon as possible so we can get that word out. Ethical behavior. So as committee members, public committee members, you are required to abide by all ethical rules and laws concerning governmental boards and commissions. Very briefly, this means that you may not solicit or accept gifts in connection with your committee service, use city facilities, personnel, equipment, or supplies for private purpose, and vote in matters in which there might be a conflict of interest. I know that there's some gray area there. City Attorney's Office is great. Often this might be a legal question if you do have concerns, if you have a conflict. But if you do feel that you may have a conflict, it is your responsibility as a committee member to bring that to the attention of the committee. The committee can then vote to recuse you from that matter. And then, of course, you should not deliver or participate in any type of deliberations and or voting. Again, staff is a resource if you have any concerns about if it is a conflict or not. And then if you have not been recused for a matter, you do have a duty to vote, so please keep that in mind.
So, this came up as a question before to clarify, that duty to vote does not allow abstentions.
Exactly. Yes, you must be recused for a conflict. Public comment. On the left is the council rules that addresses public comment. Very generally, this is not a time for debate or discussion. It is a time to hear the concerns of the community. Written comments may be submitted at that time. And for the most part, it's at the discretion of the chair on how that might look. But if your rules and procedures do not specify means, the default is to look at city council's rules. So those are what's here. I know that your rules, your very specific rules and procedures for the committee might address things like time
complaining emails every day, and that would no longer be useful. But if only staff members are sending to the email, then that means things like when Thomas has the minutes ready, he'd have to forward them to staff and have staff send it out to the list. Are there any guidelines legally as far as how maintaining listservs, how to operate them?
So if I'm hearing you correctly, so this would just be like an email that you're in a group, essentially.
It's an email list that's handled a particular way so that you only need to send one address. That individual people don't need to keep, they're constantly updating their address book so that who's on the list. But we can put the address of the listserv on the city's webpage and anyone can join it.
Okay, so it includes members as well as
Right.
interested parties. From what I understand, it sounds like a posting on the website, like it's available. So I don't see any issues there as long as, there's not any type of deliberation going on within that listserv. Does that help? Okay. Any other questions?
Can 3 members of the committee get together and go out for dinner?
Social events, absolutely. And I don't think 3 would be your quorum, right? I'm not sure what your quorum is.
I didn't think it was quorum. Is it just quorum based?
If that would make the official meeting. If they're talking about the business of the committee. So yes.
Right. For a while, we were kind of using 3 as the guideline simply because that's council's quorum, and our membership was changing so often it was easier to just remember 3 than to try to figure out what our quorum was this month. But now that we have a full table, I think we would do better about that in the future.
So is it 3 or is it quorum?
But it's quorum.
It's quorum, yes.
And then the related part of that is because we do have other transit organizations in the city now that some of us are also members of. So it becomes tricky in that if we're sitting at this table versus sitting at the Better Buses table, and we're going to be discussing the same topics, that we need to be aware of what our quorum is of that.
What your quorum is and what hat you're wearing.
Right. And how the discussion is framed in the various organizations.
Yes, something to be very conscious of.
So what I think I heard you just say is if there is a meeting like Better Buses Together, we have to know how many transit committee members are there, and if there's more than a quorum, 1 or more of us has to leave? Is that, I just want to get clear.
Depending
Taking
on
part in
what the
deliberations, yes.
transit agenda is.
Okay. So another question, this actually was in today's paper. Someone objected to someone being both a member of a committee or a commission and also an activist. Do you or the city have a position on that?
I'm
This is
not familiar with the story and I can't speak to that just because I don't know.
Asheville Politics Facebook page.
It was on the front page of today's paper.
Oh, I didn't.
Yes, where somebody's a member of the downtown commission, but they acknowledge that they are an activist. And I would consider myself in that same spirit. I'm on this commission, I also consider myself an activist. Is there a conflict?
I don't see, I mean, you're appointed to this board to act.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I would
But-
depends on what it's like.
But also being very clear that you're speaking for yourself, not necessarily the view of the entire committee.
When I spoke to city council, I acknowledged I was speaking for myself.
Yes,
I think the
that's
person
great.
making that complaint just didn't
I-
agree with the
That,
person.
I think that's
Using that.
probably true, but while she was here,
Yeah.
well, that get the answer.
The downtown commission also has some, what I would call some unique authority, like they're both,
They have a review.
they have a review authority power in addition to, I guess, an advisory power, so there's some differences in terms of their power that could make that question a little bit more, interesting, I guess, but I think for you guys, like, that
Marty and the whole transit committee is there. As long as we don't talk about transit, I don't have to leave.
You don't have to leave, but no transit. Well, I guess the work of the board. Great.
Staff responsibilities, now that we finally, yay, have a full staff. What sort of, if we have questions or issues or whatever, so what sort of issues should we be bringing to Marcella versus bringing to Eunice versus bringing to Jessica?
I would say that
phase, we'll actually get bids back tomorrow, and, then we'll go to council on July 23rd. Construction, hopefully between August and December. I think once we have a contractor on board, we'll actually be able to give a better, timeframe for exactly when construction will start, exactly, better idea at least when it will be done. So we're approximating about 4.5 months.
Walter, are you optimistic that you're gonna get enough bids this time?
So we got one bidder came by last time. If they came back, we had to open their bid. We've been picking up the phone, and I think that we're actually gonna get 3 bidders this time. So I'm cautiously optimistic that the prices will be good. On some recent bids that we've gotten, they've been right at or under budget. So which is encouraging. So, any other questions about those mechanics on the big picture?
I have a question. So what was the original intention in terms of the 1.5 billion? What kind of footprint did you wanna have in terms of square footage, and what could that handle in that
Yeah,
space?
even that much more. So there was a concern for additional restrooms, dedicated 24-hour public restrooms
Right.
on the Asheville side, on this side. You know, there's nothing there right now, so utilities alone would be 300K. That would have gotten absorbed very quickly. So, and then you got the structure out there. We talked about, Ken at one point mentioned the Portaloo, which is basically kind of, disposed down. Portland, what did I say? Yeah, Portland, yeah, that's right. Portland Loo,
It's like a fancy porta potty,
Yeah.
but fancy.
yeah, it's
Slightly fancier.
durable,
Durable.
Yeah, we looked at
Accessible.
accessible, we looked at all the, you know, either, you know, clumping that down or putting some structure there. Regardless, the main cost would have been sidewalk and the utilities to that, for that structure, whatever that was. I think actually, to that point actually, that would have freed us up for, you know, you could put ticketing on one side and make more, space on the other side, for passenger area. It would have, that little bit would have created a little bit more space. At this point now, we're within this footprint now. So some of the priorities, with, again, other city staff were, and, you know, it's very, privacy for the restrooms, but not lockable currently as they are.
Explain what that means.
I'll show you actually in this. So, this is the current layout. This, interestingly enough, was the original 1996 very small footprint. It's purely very Spartan. Only for ticketing. 2001 they did this addition for passenger waiting area. As anybody who's been there is familiar, there's this interesting elevation change here. So these 2 toilets are lockable from the inside. You have a key gate from the outside, so passengers could do anything in here. They could hurt themselves, and we would have a full time meeting in there. So with this layout, women's restroom, men's restroom, you know, just your normal partition here. That is the normal panel or metal either way. It's got, you can see the, so that you, if somebody did, were incapacitated in either one of those situations, you could get to. So these doors are not lockable. One of the lighting considerations, I don't know if submittals will come in, and once we actually get that money, make a decision, but one of the requests under, EWE, discussed with them, was to make, lighting blue in there, which would make it look like a vein. Would do what? Blue, so blue lighting would make it look like a vein. It wouldn't be hurtful, but that's it considered. We can still change that, before we install it.
I don't know that idea, but
Yeah, I mean, it's, you're not hanging out in that, just doing business with that kind of stuff.
when you say private and unlockable, just to clarify, there are still actual doors. It's not one of
Yes.
those times that you see nowadays where there's an open hallway.
partition that's lockable, just like you would in any other women's restroom.
So.
But the entrance is wide open.
Yes, yes, the entrance cannot be locked.
But there's a door.
There's a door.
Yes, yes.
It just, yeah.
It can't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then there's a stall
Thank you.
with a,
That can be locked.
that can be locked. But, so someone could be, in the men's room, there's a urinal and a stall,
Correct.
correct? So there could be 2 people in there at a time. And, but the main door to the restroom won't lock. In the women's room, there's 1 stall and a sink. And so someone could be in there using the sink and using the stall.
The terminology is. Go ahead.
Baby area.
Yes.
Yes,
So.
change the station number. So we're gonna renovate the dispatch. Part of the reason that we only have 1 stall on the women's side, we had been through many iterations of this as well. But this area over here, is the pressure showing up? Did everybody see that? Around, around the arm. Here it comes. This was gonna actually be another women's restroom, but through further discussions with operations, we're increasing the number of reps. We're already kind of taking away the space. So, this, it's hard to line up. This wall here is where this wall is right now. So we're taking away some of their space. In a
Oh, I know what it did, it flipped. Some would be displayed, and then for 10 seconds, and then the other routes would be displayed. And maybe that's a technology issue and not a question for you, but I know new electronic signs are part of this. Or maybe you want to keep the ones you have, just transport the new facility, but I'd like to see some reconsideration of the information that's displayed on those signs.
From the facility standpoint, we're installing, we helped install the ones that are there now, and we're gonna install 3 more, so you have 4 total, 1 on each end, and then in the middle we have it, facing both sides. For the technology piece of that,
Yeah, so that's, something we wanna continue working with our IT folks on. So the previous signs, those were technology that was proprietary to Nextbus. And so we're not using Nextbus anymore. What we're using right now is a feed that's coming directly from, a company that is called Transit TV. And correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm getting any of this wrong myself, but, and we struggled to, Bruce brought this up at the last meeting, was how it doesn't show all of the routes. It's really just showing you the next maybe 10 to 15 arriving routes. And we can either, at this time, we can either configure it to show everything, but it makes everything smaller, or we show not everything and it makes it, the text bigger. And so I think, our next step is if that's not, if what we have now is not meeting the need, we have options to explore some, different companies that provide a live feed. What we're using now is free. What we would have to do is find something that we have to pay for. And if that's what we need to do, we will do that. We kind of wanted to test this. It's free. It's connected to our, I mean, it's feeding all the live information, that you get through apps and Google and such. And it's just limited in how it can be shown. And it doesn't seem like folks want, you guys wanna see more is what I'm hearing. More, and that it's not big enough. And so we need to look at probably a paid option, unfortunately, but it's good feedback. And so the intention is to have, like Walter said, additional screens, throughout the platform. And then we just need to figure out how to best portray the information on those screens. They're basically just, they're television screens, with a enclosure that's weather and vandalism protected. So we can put whatever we want on those screens. So we just need to work on that.
If you're gonna have 4 screens altogether, can you put half the list on 2 of the screens and the other half the list on the other 2 screens?
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe. Or we could add more screens. It's all just money, right? At one point, we had talked about having 8 screens up there, and it might be that it's cheaper for us to do that than it is to pay for a company to do a custom, you know what I'm trying to say, information. Like, it could be that it's just easier, cheaper. I mean, Walter's gonna kill me because, of course, he needs to think about the electricity and the outlets for whatever we do. So, it's more complicated than it sounds, but we'll get there.
My caution is that if 8 screens is displaying the same information 8 times, that's
Yeah.
not helpful.
Right.
Versus some more useful way to configure those 8 screens.
Right.
Or 4 screens.
Yeah. However many.
any other questions about the platform? So, what we are still working on, signage and furniture, those will be installed by non-construction contractor, but we're going with a different vendor. Part of the reason for postponing signage is that, we're made aware that,
green,
Yes.
which is really low contrast and hard to
Yeah,
read. So,
Yes.
I'm hoping that y'all are taking colors into consideration and readability.
Yes. I don't know when this were installed, but yeah, it's easy to miss for sure. So these these paddles here, and it's going to be a paddle with a sign. You can't see behind this. Actually, it kind of blends into this, but trust me, there's a sign up there that displays next to the number. I think that we had measured out Austin, how big are those paddles? 2 feet.
Right now, I think it listed at 3 feet, but they're gonna go down to 2 feet.
Yeah, so, I mean, they're gonna, so you hopefully you can miss them. I think that this sign, as we started to get into it, realized that the text really didn't need relatively small as well, because our route names are pretty long. So, again, this is, it's in progress because it's something that we can do after the facility implementation is done.
It might be good to note that the 2 left pictures are the existing. That's not what's being planned to be put back.
Make a recommendation, given that I'm visually impaired, can you guys get some visually impaired people involved in this to see if we can
Yes.
see any of that stuff at some point?
Yes,
Please,
so
That would be awesome.
I will mention that, part of the, I think the length of time that we took was, we also had some public outreach. We went there and, displayed some, mock layouts, and then took some surveys, guided them. So we absolutely will, solicit input from both this committee and then writers as well about the signage.
Is that something you did about 8 months ago at the transit center?
I think it was August, so yes.
Because that's where I mentioned the drainage issue to the people who were doing that work.
Okay. I will check in our, we can take feedback forms and I'll check back with those. And I will get back to, Jessica and the committee about those.
And I hate to rush things through, but we are getting on in time and we've got more to do, so.
So I'll be quick for, so at least the plan is that, it's gonna maintain operations. So we are, planning to have a office trailer and a restroom trailer while this building is being renovated. It will be in the adjacent lot to the south. Some of the challenges there are working on getting connectivity there, phones, internet, and then making sure that they can still use the, speaker system, case system. And then while these 2 sections are being done, we'll continue to, operate off of Ashland and the one outside. Questions about the logistics of that?
When we get closer and throughout, we'll keep updates on which phase we're in, what impacts there are, and what changes would be necessary.
So, not transit related, but it is a project that is gonna be going on here. So there'll be a solar array on the south exposure of the roof. 65 kW system, it's funded by the Green CIP. Really what's keeping us from getting started is the Duke interconnection request, which, I think the fast track was 6 to 9 weeks. So, whenever they approve it, we'll start on the project. And the contractor is aware, I think that gives us plenty of notice so that we can, shift operations again to Ashland Avenue. So we don't expect more than 2 weeks of, disruption to service. And that's the project. Any questions?
Well, that 2-week interruption will be separate from and in addition to the other interruptions.
Correct.
You can't piggyback them.
So, the way that, again, when we have a contractor on board, they may have some better way of doing things, but the way we proposed it is doing it in sort of sausage links. Because, if you're cleaning and painting underneath the platform and installing, you risk or directly to me, if you can answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then again, start on it.
We're gonna show you, this will be pretty quick, we're gonna show you a 2-minute video about what Smart Drive is, and then Barry's gonna talk a little bit about how he
shown. And we need to be addressing that with the driver. Listen, you have to slow down here. You can't be driving that way down this road. Look what it is doing to the people on this bus. Well, I can't meet schedule. Well, you know what? We've got to work on that part. But the reality is you can't drive that way. You're putting your passengers at risk, you're at risk. Those are the kind of things that we will coach with the employees in trying to change some of the behavior that's going on that's causing those things to happen. Curbing tires. Tires are, then you're $500 a pop. You know, and when you curb tires and you scrape tires, they wear out prematurely. And it becomes an expensive thing. If you're not doing that, that gives you more flexibility to do other things down the road. So those are the kind of things, that's the kind of tool it is. It's a behavior modification. And I have rolled it out in fleets of 120 buses. And within 120 days, actually customers say, wow, the drivers are different. Because we attacked that behavior. And it doesn't have to play, well, I have a route that has 54 turns one way. If I have to slow down that much on turns and do a push-pull rather than this turn, it's going to kill my schedule. Lo and behold, you know what it does? When you talk about 2 seconds per turn instead of this, and you slow down, you take the speed that's cautious. And the reality is, we kill people at intersections in this business. It's where people die from our buses. And we need to slow down at intersections, and we need to be cautious at intersections. And we need to create that cushion. You know, if that bus driver didn't see that light turn green, you must assume it's going to change yellow. And if you assume it's going to change yellow, you will be slowing down and being cautious as you approach that intersection. And stop if it turns yellow, rather than gunning it and getting through it. That's the kind of behavior we're about to change. That's what the objective is. The employees are aware it's coming. We had a great safety meeting Sunday evening with, how many people were there? 60 to 75 people. And it was a really good meeting. We talked about this. We talked about several other things. Issues that come up at the transit committee meetings. I mean, those are the things we're trying to feed back to them and get their feedback on and communicate. Listen, this is not should not be a conflict. It's a working together to make us a better system. So this is one more tool in that quiver to make us better drivers out there. That's what we're planning on to do. Is it an investment in safety? Yes. Because if you change your driving behaviors, it only takes one serious accident. So if you can invest a little dollars here to change the risk we have, as that video said, it's risk. It's all about risk. Lower the risk, change the habits, become much safer and more professional drivers. That's what we should do. That's what smart driving is. And I think it's going to affect a lot of things positively. We're not out to fire anybody. We're not looking to get rid of anybody. We just want to change some behaviors that you're seeing popping up. Passengers bouncing around the back seat, flying out of the seat, slamming on the brakes when we should have been looking ahead a little more. Those kind of things. When we learn how to do that, I don't drive my car the way I used to. After learning to drive again, learning smart driving. You just don't drive that way anymore because you see how much at risk you can be. So anyhow, any questions about that?
Yeah, the video mentioned that there would be experts reviewing the videos.
We
Does
don't
that
get
mean
all the
your
clips.
staff, or is that someone else?
We don't get all the clips. If you hit a speed bump, I don't need to see that. I don't have time to look at that video, okay? I'm only get the ones that they review, and they will actually flag these.
Have they, meaning
Smart Drive.
Smart Drive. So you're contracting with them to provide this service?
They do that, yes. Now what they do is they tell me in a summary whether it's following too close, so we should have been a little farther back, or curbing a tire, or drowsy. It'll actually flag you if you yawn not everybody's yawning because they're too tired to be driving out there. So we gotta deal with that part, but it's gonna flag it and come to us, and then we deal with those. We have to put drivers' names to them, and we have to walk through them. So that's how it works. So I don't have to. When I first rolled this out at a division, when it first started coming out in the early 2000s, I did have to review every clip and get rid of those speed bumps and that stuff. So you're looking at hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of clips to get through that. And you recruit supervisors to do this for hours every day. And then you wean it down and you start eliminating that stuff. But the companies that do this anymore actually take care of that for you. So all you're doing is dealing with those that you need to deal with, basically. Beth,
Yeah, that was one of my questions, was the whole
Okay.
feedback.
Yeah.
That was the second question. So in terms of the secondary source of data, besides driver modification, you said that they can note things.
Mhm.
So, can they note specific traffic conditions that you wouldn't be getting from any other source? There's an accident in front of them, or those kind of things that can overlay to see like what conditions they're driving in also, that then goes back to the whole, scheduling why they're late. So that's kind of, to me, a secondary source of data that's kind of built in. Maybe, if they could note that, how would that look like?
I think
Thinking
there's
about it.
another source for that data.
That's
and
what I
we're
wondered,
working
right.
on- And that is the GPS tracking system, the AVL system that tracks the buses, and how we use that.
Okay.
And we're looking at some things there too.
Yeah.
Because that shows bus is late. Okay, why is it late?
Yeah.
And usually they report that, so we have that through dispatch. We know what's going on with it. That's not probably the primary thing you'd be doing, but more of informational about the route, about trees hanging low, a stop sign missing, or I had to slam the brakes on. We will see that, and they punch you every 10 seconds. You can punch it, and it'll keep recording. So you'll get those series in a row. We have video on the buses anyway, but it's just another way for them to do it in a fairly straightforward, simple way, and communicate to us.
And Barry, can you change the parameters of what they give you if you want to look at specific things? Do they set the parameters? Can you proactively say, I want to see, can you pull this for me?
You can't go in, we can go do that with our regular video.
Right, but not, okay.
But now, this should give you the flags. If it was a G-force event or a flag event from the driver, those are where we're gonna get. So that's pretty much how it works. If you're taking off too fast, any drivers take off too fast? Not electric. But, those are the kind of things that we'll see, because some of the diesels will take off pretty good. You're rolling real good, gives you miles per hour, gives you all those things. So if the driver's involved in an accident, you actually know the G-force of the accident, the braking, when the driver was alerted to the fact that there's an event about to happen, you actually see that in the G-force evaluation. How quick was the reaction? You see it on the video, how quick did we actually brake? Most people do that within about 3/4 of a second. It takes that long to see it visually, and for that to hit your foot to make the brake go on, about 3/4 of a second. Good drivers paying attention can do it in a half a second. And you start looking for people to move that way so that they're more prepared. They're covering their brake at that intersection, being ready for those things. You start to change that behavior. And like I said, it will change how you drive forever, whether it's a car, a bus, or a tractor trailer. So it's a good tool. I've always said that one of the greatest tools ever created was the cordless screwdriver. What a wonderful invention by man, until I saw smart driving back then. It's a wonderful, wonderful
Endorsement.
adjustment to how you drive, period. But I was working when we
start this around. Actually, there's food. These are vegan and gluten-free maple oatmeal chocolate chip cookies.
Wow.
By my wife.
Oh.
So this is your plate and napkin. Pass it along.
Thank you,
This is
guys.
your food. Thank my wife.
Thank you, Jeff White.
Thank you, Jeff White.
And let me just say that I will not be going away.
Okay.
I've been involved in transit for 50 years, so it's in my blood. So I'm going to stay involved, particularly over the next 6 months.
Thank you.
Transit master plan implementation works out. And I may be like Tom and turning up here from time to time. Thank you all. Coming.
There's plenty for our guests as well.
Stefan, if I remember correctly, you were actually on transit committee before multimodal existed.
Yes, I've actually been on for almost 7 years. Even though the official limit is 6 years, but when they formed the I joined the transit committee in 2012, and when the multimodal was started in 2013, they changed my term to coincide with my new term in multimodal. My first term was almost 4 years, plus a second 3-year term. Although I think Tom's got the record. I think he was on and off the transit committee and
Yeah, I had,
served more years
36,
altogether.
I had 7 years on the committee.
So again, I hate to rush things, but we are at 5 o'clock. So to segue into, you know, report from multimodal.
Okay, yeah. Let's see, at the last multimodal meeting, we had a presentation from Padilla, from the planning department on the urban centers program. This is an effort the planning department, city planning department is leading to encourage, denser mixed-use development along transit corridors. And they've selected 4 different locations where they're gonna change the zoning to encourage mixed-use development. One of those is the Innsbrook Mall property on Tunnel Road. Another is the Ingalls and Safemore, that whole complex on Merriman. There's the Kmart on Patton in West Asheville. And then the 4th one, I can't remember. I didn't take very good notes at the last meeting, but that's the program that the planning department is starting. And they're going through some public input on that now, if you're interested. I think there was a survey on the well, I think they just had a meeting last week. I don't know if the survey is still open on that.
I think the other one is the one on Merriman. Did you say that one?
That's one of the 4 locations.
Yeah, you mentioned.
Yeah,
Walmart.
Merriman.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, yeah, the Walmart on Lee Street, right, that's. Let's see, we skip some of the others. We got an update on the Charlotte Street program, and that's something that's moving ahead pretty quickly. They've done the design work, they're gonna be contracting that out over the next couple of months, and I think they plan the work to be done this fall. It's basically a road diet program where they're converting the 4-lane section of Charlotte north of Chestnut to a 3-lane road diet, 1 lane in each direction, a center left turn lane, and bike lanes in both directions, with some additional crosswalks, because it's a pretty long distance between
understand, you know.
Is there anything from Marcy or Ben Buses that we need to know about right now? No? And Dick?
I'm actually gonna be asking a question that came out of an RC meeting. You want me to ask that now?
Again, I would say if it's not necessary time-wise, then hold it
up a little bit and tighten it up at other areas, okay? So that we can. And there's a few things you could do. I'll just give you an example. In the morning, you could hold a route back at 6:30 a.m. 4 additional minutes at its first out bam before it comes in there. If that particular piece of work can run early that first 5 stops on that route, then hold it back, lay it over a little longer at that time schedule. But you can't really move off of end times. They all gotta meet down at transit center. They all gotta come there.
Right.
So there's things like that you can do so that a driver should leave that starting time point on time. And if they leave that time point on time, the next time point they're a minute early. Well, now you gotta lay down a minute in the middle of the street. That doesn't make a lot of sense. It's stopping any traffic, it's a hazard. There's ways to tweak schedules. It's not a perfect science, but there are things we can do. And then work with that. But realistically, and we're working with what was created in the Transit Master Plan, how many ever years ago it was.
And is, number of stops negotiable or non-negotiable, is that one on the table? I mean, the fact that there's so many stops in some of these routes, that stop. I mean, is that all being looked at? I'm going back to drilling down in your data and looking at OTP. I mean, some of this stuff is super affecting that, so I wanna go, we can discuss it more like.
We can, yeah, and
You know
I
what I
think
mean?
so when Barry and his staff go and
Yeah.
run all of the routes and make notes of which ones they're having a particular issue with, it might be that looking closer at the stops could be the key to helping on time performance. Of course, when you remove a stop, there could be an impact to individuals, so it's a balancing act, but the intention is to try to dial in on time performance as much as possible. It is challenging when you have this system where everything comes in at the same time and leaves. You can't make one route 65 minutes when everything else is 60, you know, because if people need to make transfers, we have to accommodate that. So there are some constraints.
But it doesn't mean we can't do exactly those kind of things. What can we possibly do to give this a better shot?
Yeah.
You know, there are times where the delay is not the driver's fault. You know, the Pisgah community housing thing, you know, I go down and walk around. And the other morning I was taking that, and the driver was right on time, you know, came around and turned to go back out, and there was the trash truck empty. It's about 10 or 20. So it was a 10-minute delay for that 100-foot place.
Yeah, and it does happen. I mean, and there's, trucks unloading downtown.
Train in South Asheville.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna ask, so I really appreciated seeing the spreadsheet with all the tasks. Can we get updates on that every single month? And can y'all let us know if there's anything we can do? I mean, I definitely think a lot of us wanna help with, especially the community outreach piece, because there's gonna be a lot of changes. So, we had heard from a prior transit community member that at the last CMP, like implementation of changes, transit committee did get regular updates with that kind of spreadsheet, and that was really helpful. So I think if we could get that, that would be great. And then there was a question at RC, and maybe Jeff, I don't know if this is what you were gonna bring up about the electric buses, and there
Different question.
Oh, okay. Well, one question was, that the TMP was, as we understood it, was based on, I guess the concern is whether the plans for the service expansions are gonna be thrown off since the electric buses are not serving as well as intended. And I don't know if that makes sense, but we know it's always tight with buses. And I guess folks wanted to know if the fact that the electric buses are not being able to be used as much as hoped, is that gonna throw us off in January?
The short answer is we hope and pray not.
We're working to not have that.
Yeah, and we are, I would say,
4 total or 4 cutaways?
4 cutaways is what we've been discussing, and 3 hybrids is what we had discussed. But I wanna, you know, it's not 100% yet, we're still looking at what, state contracts might be out there that we can help us with. We're talking to different vendors to see what, type of vehicle that's needed our needs for the long term. So, you know, it's very likely, I mean, we want whatever vehicle we purchase to be in the
and thank you for diving down